Good day. Thank you for tuning into this 2018 General Election Candidate Forum for Thurston County Commissioner. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates. We are nonpartisan, and the League activities include registering new voters, studying issues, and advocating for positions with the legislature. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women of voting age. I'm Karen Tweet from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for County Commission District 1 are Jim Cooper and John Hutchings. For this forum, candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I'll ask them questions in alternating order. The person first asked the question will have 2 minutes for a response, followed by 1 minute from the other candidate. There will be a 1-minute closing statement at the end. We'll begin with opening statements from the candidate, beginning with Jim Cooper.
Thank you. I'm Jim Cooper. I'm on the Olympia City Council, and in my day job, I'm the director of United Ways of the Pacific Northwest, which is the trade association for United Ways in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. I do public policy training and technical assistance for 39 United Ways. In my work on the City Council, I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, as well as the chair of the Olympic Regional Clean Air Agency, which is the regulator and monitor for our air for the entire Olympic Peninsula. As your county commissioner, I'll work very hard on 3 things. The first one is to make sure that county government works for you. I truly believe that whether you're accessing the justice system or getting your restaurant inspected, you should have the exact same level of customer service from your county employees. Secondly, we're focusing on healthy people and healthy places, so making sure we have good parks and recreation opportunities, as well as good mental health services so that we aren't using our jail for a mental health holding facility. And lastly, I want to make sure there's opportunity for all Thurston County residents. We are nearing 50% of our community in some parts of the rural county that are in poverty or struggling to get by. Only one automobile accident or broken down appliance away from not being able to feed their families or being able to keep their homes. And I think that it's really important that we focus on economic development and make sure that we bring good family wage jobs to the community so that we can begin to provide that opportunity that people are looking for. I'm an Army veteran. I'm an Eagle Scout. You can find out more about me on my website at electjimcooper.com.
Thank you, Jim. Hutch?
I'm John Hutchings. Feel free to call me Hutch. My wife and I have been married for 41 years, and I love putting Debbie ahead of me and still open the car doors for her, and I love supporting her in her own business, which is an equine sport riding academy in Thurston County. We have 2 children. Janet, our daughter Janet, is married to a woman named Dawn, and they live in Seattle, and their baby girl is going to be 1-year-old in 2 weeks' time, and that's going to be a great party. And they're very successful in the tech business in Seattle. My son Mike and his wife Katie live in Lacey with their 4 children. And Mike, his career in the Army was cut short when he came back in 2011 after surviving an IED attack in Iraq. And he came back with 2 things, a Purple Heart and a traumatic brain injury. We love our grandbabies, we love our grandchildren, they're the center of our lives. They bring chaos and sanity and humor and a lot of positive memories. Besides the grandbabies, another passion of mine is my police work and loving people and the service and representing people. And like the League of Women Voters said, they are nonpartisan. I too am independent and nonpartisan. And for 35 years in law enforcement, that's how I served and represented the people in my communities that I served. For 27 years of my work with Olympia PD, I spent working with the mentally ill in crisis and chemically dependent and diverting them from jail and getting them back into medical and mental services where they receive proper care. What I bring to the County Commission is trust, integrity, and leadership. And to that end, what I enjoy is the support of 4 county mayors and 2 port commissioners. And what that tells me is not North County versus South County, it's Thurston County values. So to that end, I'm going to be bringing, with your vote as your commissioner, I'll be bringing trust and leadership and dedication to the Thurston County Commission. I need your vote, and I would appreciate your vote for County Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim and Hutch. Hutch, the first question comes to you for 2 minutes, and it deals with growth. What do you see as the issues, and what would you do to address the challenges that go with the growth we're experiencing in Thurston County?
There are numerous challenges, as you say, Karen, to this issue. The first thing that needs to be done is relationship building with county officials, and that includes the port commissioners and the EDC, Economic Development Council, and the various parties that are involved in urban growth. The big issue that kind of stalls us is the Habitat for Conservation Plan, and that's the pocket gopher issue. That needs to be scaled back so that we can increase permitting and get permitting and some development, commerce development as well as residential, back on track in the county, which increases the county revenues. Then we can afford to do more in other areas regarding community health and economic growth. But the number one issue is building relationships and partnerships, as well as reeling back the legislative, the HCP, because that's going to cost, it's going to cost us $151 million over a 30-year period for the federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife to implement that plan. And we don't know if that's going to be the whole county pays for that $151 million over 31 years, or whether it's going to be just the unincorporated pieces. There's a lot of pieces to this, this puzzle that need to be unraveled and sorted out with our developer, with the relationship built with our partners that have a big, huge stake in our development. So it's multifaceted. It's difficult to answer that question in 2 minutes because you're dealing with two federal agencies, you're dealing with the port, you're dealing with the EDC, and you're dealing with all the partners that are involved in bringing economic development to Thurston County.
Thank you. Jim, for 1 minute.
Yes, so growth is coming. In fact, in the next 2 decades or so, we're projected to get nearly 400,000 people total living in our county. And so we have a choice. We can either plan for it or we can take it as it comes. And so I think it's really important that we plan for it. And in that, we need to do 2 things. The first one is make sure that we protect our pristine environment, our prairies, and our unique location between the Puget Sound and the mountains that are the reason these people are living here, the reason that we all live here and why we love it. And frankly, the natural economic engine that makes our community a great place to live and protects our quality of life. People are coming here because it's beautiful and we have a high quality of life. And then secondly, we need to make sure that we grow density in the county, in the cities and in the urban growth areas so that we can protect that county and make sure that we preserve farmland and the beautiful setting that we have around the region. So plan for growth, protect the environment, and increase density in the cities and the urban growth areas.
Thank you. Jim, the next question is, law enforcement services of the county account for approximately 75 to 80% of the county budget. How do we assure that the rest of the county's services aren't shortchanged?
Yeah, that's a really hard balance, and I think we have to make sure that we provide all of the programs that are prescribed to the county by the state. A lot of people don't know that our job as the county government is to implement state law. And so whether you're a coroner or an assessor or a sheriff, you all have the same responsibility to implement law. And so when we make budget decisions, that can be very difficult. But we need to make sure that we have the right number of deputies on the road to keep our county safe. We also need to find ways to grow our options programs to keep people out of the jail and serving, living with their families if they're not a threat to our society so that they can continue to be good citizens and good family members. So growing the therapeutic courts and the options programs that we have to keep people out of jail while also bolstering our mental health and our substance abuse systems and working to create a better partnership between the sheriff's office, the prosecutor's office, the defense attorney's office, and the courts so that we can have sentencing that works for people and doesn't just treat them as a number in the system that continues to suck money from the taxpayer coffers.
Jim?
John?
Hutch? I'm sorry.
Good question, and it is a hot topic. And where we've been working with the therapeutic courts and specialty courts for several years, and we continue working that effort and diverting people from jail with chemical dependency and mental health issues. Going right to the heat of the question, or the meat of the question, is The law and justice budget is such a huge component of the budget because that includes the courts, it includes the prosecutor's office and all the sundry of departments there as well. But the Thurston County Sheriff's Office is a much smaller part of the budget, much smaller than is being purported. And the deputy to citizen ratio in the county, out of 39 counties in Washington State, we're 39. And I think people within the city limits that receive about a 1 to 1.5 minute response time for a violent crime, our citizens in the unincorporated parts of the county should receive something very similar. Currently, response time for a priority one crime, violent felony, is right around 15 to 20 minutes. And it takes a considerable time to get that deputy back up.
Thank you. The next question comes to you, Hutch. Do you favor the pursuit of a charter government for Thurston County? Why or why not?
That is another hot topic, which are several. Bottom line is, I will represent all the people of Thurston County and what their opinion of what their form of government should look like. To that end, that takes a tremendous amount of planning. There would be, if we were to do a charter, we would need to do an amendment to the comprehensive plan. We would need to plan for this and put the steps and all the pieces in motion so when it happens, we're ready for it. It needs to be budgeted for. We currently don't have the space for additional 2 commissioners and staff. So there's a lot of components that bump into this one issue. Now, the charter would also have a component of an executive manager for the county. And no matter what the people want and what the commissioners vote on, the executive manager, who is not an elected position, would have veto power. And I don't think I like that because that's taking what the people's wishes are away from the people. Now, there's the home rule, and that's expanding the commission from 3-person to a 5-person commission. And again, I would ask the people what they want their government to look like, how they want that to function. And if the people wish that, that's fine. But it's the same thing regarding budgeting and staff and room. And so those are very key components. So we're not, there's nothing I'm going to start pushing in the meantime, or as soon as I become elected January 2nd, I won't be stepping in trying to force this or fight it away. But it's going to take time to implement these plans, get the pieces in order, and then put it to the vote of the people to see what they want their government to look like. So there's equal and representation for everybody. Shouldn't be more people are more equal than others. That's not the case.
Jim?
Yeah, the state constitution gives us 2 options in this vein. So one is when we reach 300,000 people living in the county, we can ask the voters to increase the size of the commission to 5. Or we could create a board of freeholders to write a constitution or a charter for Thurston County, which would consider things like that. I think fundamentally people need to realize that if one commissioner is missing, 2 people are making decisions on budget and policy for the entire county. And to me, that should be illegal. I don't think that 2 people or even 3 should be responsible for any tax dollars. We need to have a board that's 5 people so we can make sure that it's fair to the community. But all of that said, these are decisions that would be made by the voters, including whether we wanted an elected or appointed executive, whether they would have a veto power or not. That would be left up to the freeholders to present a charter to the county so that the voters could vote it up or down. It's no secret that I've been a leader in this area, and I look forward to continuing that conversation with the community.
Jim, the next question. What steps should Thurston County take to begin dealing with the effects of climate change?
Boy, that's a hard question to answer in 2 minutes. So we have a couple of things. The first thing is we need to make sure that we protect public and private infrastructure. So having a conversation about how to be prepared for sea level rise, which countywide, even away from the shorelines, that translates to up to 6 feet of inundation anytime we have a storm event in our low-lying areas within the next 50 years. So we need to make sure that our roads and our public infrastructure are protected, and begin to have the conversation about how we're going to protect private development so that it can also last through the flooding. But stepping back from that, we need to make sure that as a region, we are actually not continuing to contribute to the problem. So how can we reduce our carbon emissions across the county, looking at zero waste policies and energy policies so that we can maybe even think about our county becoming energy independent into the future. we can't solve this problem alone. So this is an opportunity for the county to call the cities and the other government jurisdictions and private business to the table to talk about how we can do our part to reduce the contributions we're making to global warming. As I said, it's a long conversation, and I could talk about it for a long time, but I think I'll stop there.
Hutch?
Very complex issues. And I don't believe that I'm going to do anything that's going to solve global warming in 4 years. And I've advocated that I'm not going to be a leader until the next election. I will lead to the next generations. So the things that we'll be doing, setting up into practice and into policy, will have an impact immediately and down the road when my grandbabies are grown up to affect their children as well. Number one is I really believe that we need to do more work with solar energy at the county level. Solar energy saves water, it produces more electricity, and then we can talk about the vehicles that we have at the county that we use. But there's a whole lot of things that we can do even regarding harnessing the wind power that we have and maintaining our environment at the same time. So that one doesn't overpower the other. It should be a balance between economic growth, our energy use and consumption, and saving the planet.
Thank you. This next question has to do with groundwater, and it comes to you first, Hutch. We don't really know how many private wells we have in the county or even how much water they use. What actions would you take to preserve the county's groundwater resources?
Well, before I answer that question directly, let me tell you that I am all about clean water, clean air, and protecting our land. It's water, land, and air, very important. And our children grew up with a well. We had a well in our home before we were converted to city water. And protecting our water was paramount to me and the health of our kids. And you're right, we don't know how many wells we have. And I've heard talk that the county commission wants to, they're considering putting meters, having people put meters on the wells just to monitor the water use. I suspect there may be another piece down the road regarding taxes or fees attached to that. I'm suspect. We don't know how many septic systems we have. It's kind of, we don't have a nebulous number that the Department of Health gives us. We don't know how many are going to fail, and that will impact groundwater as well. We need to look at these types of issues because there are several things that do impact our groundwater, even the fertilizers we use on our lawns. All types of things, and livestock impact the groundwater. I would need to look at these issues, research the issues, and dig down and examine the data and talk to the subject matter experts, because no pun intended, I don't walk on water, so I don't have all of the answers. However, talk to the subject matter experts and discuss with the people that will be impacted by the decisions that the commission makes and make the best policy for all of Thurston County, because all the water is involved with all of us. I mean, it's very, very important to work with LOT as well. LOT is implementing new systems to even take pharmaceuticals out of our drinking water and out of the water that goes into the sound. It's all complex, as I said, and they're all intertwined. So it takes relationships, it takes interaction, and looking at the much bigger picture than just wells and just water.
Jim?
This is about a regional effort to make sure that we all have clean drinking water. And so making sure that the county has a good understanding of what wells there are and what septic systems or other uses are happening on the land within the wellhead protection areas. The Department of Ecology has great policies and restrictions and guidelines for how to establish wellhead protection. The county has good laws in place, but it's a matter of knowing what's out there and making sure that we're not having the wrong uses around the wellhead. The other thing is when we run into drought times, we also see one neighbor's well drawing down another neighbor's well without knowing because they haven't been planned together. And so there's conversations in smaller neighborhoods depending on the subsurface, the geography and the soils to talk about how we can plan for wells as groups rather than having a single well on each piece of property.
Thank you. Jim, the next question comes to you. The City of Olympia has taken steps to address the needs of the homeless in our county, our community. What do you see as the county's responsibility in dealing with this problem?
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, it's really a tough conversation. So actually the county is the only jurisdiction in the region that actually gets money from the state and federal government to deal with homelessness. So all of the work that the city's been able to do has been actually fairly small and inconsequential in the major conversation, because the big money that comes into our region is programmed by the county and its interjurisdictional work. And so there's a couple of things. We need to make sure that we have adequate emergency shelter. Right now we're on the decline and we're down to only 37 emergency shelter beds in Thurston County coming up for this winter, with 400 people or more living on the streets every single night. So we have a significant need, but we also need to make sure we have good access to services when we do bring people in the door through some sort of coordinated entry system, making sure that we have long-term shelter, we have ability to put people in rapid rehousing or permanent supported housing. I think we all need to realize that there's a good number of people in this population that won't be able to take care of themselves in a traditional housing setting. So how can we put them in a home and make sure that the services they need to get by and contribute to the community are adequate and available for them? On top of overlay of all of this, we need to make sure that we have a very strong mental health and substance abuse systems, both in a preventative as well as treatment and intervention, so that people really have the tools to succeed. Because frankly, when it comes down to it, if you don't have a good education, you're not healthy, or you don't have a job, it's pretty hard to keep a roof over your head. So we need to make sure that we have a good balanced approach to that.
Hutch?
We have in Thurston County, we have 3 entry points for homeless. We've got family support services, and we have CYS, and we have sidewalk. CYS is for children or our youth to enter into housing. And family support services is for an adult with children, and sidewalk is for an adult with no kids. And though we advocate, and we'll all say the same thing, that we need to get people homes, it's more than just about giving someone a house over their head. I'm sorry, a roof over their head, thank you. Because you have to have the wraparound services that go along with that. If you have chemical dependency issues, you have mental health issues, or other types of issues going on in your life that prevent you, that cause you to be homeless, giving you a home alone is not going to solve those issues. You need to have the wraparound services that help you sustain that your lifestyle. You can have a roof. With no support services, you're doomed to fail. You can have all the services in the world that are available to you and our resources here in Thurston County, but without a roof over your head, it's not going to work. So we need to work regionally with our partners.
Thank you. Hutch, this question comes to you first. What action should the county take to deal with pollution in the Deschutes River?
Going back to my earlier answer, there's a host of community partners, which is residential, business, the tribes as well, and state. And we need to work with these people to, number one, find out what is the exact issue we are trying to address specifically. Is it water? Is it the temperature of the water, which was an issue that helped close the Olympia Brewery? Is it pesticides and contaminants, toxins going into the water? Is it less water? Is it damming up the way? We need to look at all these issues to find out what exactly is the issue, the problem that needs to be addressed, and then work collaboratively with our partners again within the state and the region to address that issue and bring it to a successful conclusion or resolution. We're all about protecting our waterways and our fish and such, but it also, when we look at development, whether it's residential or small commercial, the setbacks from the rivers have changed from 50 feet to 100 feet to 200 feet to 250 feet, and now it's 300 feet, which is a considerable amount of property taken away from people that live along the waterways. And so we're eroding away people's rights, and we don't know if that 300 feet is actually sufficient or in far excess of protections that were given to our shorelines. So that needs to be seriously looked at and balanced between the government's interests and personal interests in our community. It should be a balance and not one heavy-handed.
Jim?
Yeah, so it's really important that the county play a role as a convener in the region, so to bring partners together to talk about the health of the Deschutes River. And there's a couple of places we need to really focus. One is to make sure that our agricultural practices and our development practices aren't happening on top of the river. We do have pretty significant buffers in Thurston County, but I would contend that the best available science actually says they should be much larger than they are. So I think we've met a balance between property development and environmental protection there. And the biggest issue with the Deschutes River, frankly, though, is the stormwater runoff from our roads. So how do we get the rural county roads to have good stormwater protection and treatment so that we won't be running oil and dirt and grime right off the road right into the river? And then lastly, we need to figure out a way as a region to get the dam out of the mouth of the river. It's severely hindering the health of the river as well as the health of the Puget Sound and Budd Inlet. But before we do that, we need to ensure that we have a good sediment management plan to make sure that we can keep our port and our local marinas open and operating into the future so that they can continue to drive our environment or our economy.
Thank you. We're now at our last question. Good governance requires consideration of potential solutions as well as compromise. Jim, tell us about a time in your political or professional life when you used those techniques for a win-win solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell a story from last year. So we, in the city of Olympia, we had a group of citizens come to us a little over a year ago. Actually, it's almost about 2 years ago now, time flies, and saying that they had trouble with how we'd been allocating voter-approved funding for parks and open space acquisition. They had a problem, and it was a problem that the city council wasn't aware of because most of us were new and we hadn't been there long enough to see what these citizens were seeing looking from the outside, and they came to us. At the same time, we had groups of citizens coming and saying, we need to buy this property and make sure that we're protecting open space and woods for generations to come. And so I called together all of the disparate parks organizations and parks advocates from around the region. We sat down and we cut a deal. We compromised and we showed our integrity to make sure that we really were all behind the goal of improving open space and access to parks and recreation for everyone in Thurston County or in the city of Olympia for generations to come. We put it to the voters and we created the Olympia Metropolitan Parks District, which has actually made Olympia one of the first cities in the region to have a long-term and sustainable parks funding source. Not only from a little bit of new money, but we've also made sure through an interlocal agreement that we are dedicating the funding from the general fund and other voter-approved funding into the long term for parks and recreation. It was a very tough discussion that started with, hey, you did something wrong, and the city worked with the voters and the regional partners to make sure that we could recover from it together in a positive way that helps our community into the future.
Hutch?
For numerous years, probably upwards of 7 to 10 years with the Olympia Police Department, I worked as the downtown coordinator responsible for all police response to downtown issues. And so let me preface what I'm going to tell you the story with this, that in my opinion, you have government and you have business and you have nonprofits. And they should be on an equal plane when they're working together. If the government gets too heavy-handed, it takes everything else out of balance and it's not going to be functional. If you have business too powerful, it doesn't support nonprofits, it's dysfunctional, again, in that relationship. So they should be kept equal. I did, several years ago, I worked with the ODA, Olympia Downtown Association, the Dispute Resolution Center, the veterans groups, our faith-based groups, and the Salvation Army, again, business and commerce and nonprofit and government, to come together and how are we going to help the people that are suffering with chemical dependency and homelessness downtown and mental health issues. And it was, okay, well, we need more police officers downtown, and there was a whole host of things that didn't work out in the long term.
Thank you. We're now at our closing statements. Jim, you get the first closing statement for 1 minute.
Thank you. Well, thank you to the League for doing this. I think it's really important that the community have an opportunity to get to know who's running for office so they can make an informed decision. I want to make sure I call out my family, my wife Thomasina and my daughter Maggie, who have really supported me in doing this. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. In fact, my 4.5-year-old daughter Maggie is the reason I'm running for office. I want to make sure that we leave a community that's great for her kids and her grandkids to enjoy into the future. I'm a seasoned executive, I'm an experienced policymaker, and a compassionate leader, and I'm asking for your vote on November 8th. Please vote for me, Jim Cooper. You can find out more on my website at electjimcooper.com. Also on Facebook and Twitter at electjimcooper. Thank you.
Hutch?
Again, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm going to finish up by saying the efforts that we did downtown did help for a considerable period of time, but then it went away. I want to thank you also, the League of Women Voters and Thurston Community Media, for this opportunity. This is a critical election because there's a lot at stake with community development, building partnerships and such. And I want to again assure you that by voting for me, you are bringing leadership, dedication, trust, and integrity to the Thurston County Commission. I have a proven record of being nonpartisan, independent, and bringing people together, no matter what part of the side of the aisle you're on, and being collaborative and reaching a very compromising way to move forward that appeases everybody. I can do that, and if you want to know more about me, please www.votehutch.com. Vote for me. I greatly appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our forums with candidates for County Commissioner District 1. Thank you to our candidates, Jim Cooper and John Hutchins, for your participation, and thank you to TCTV for sponsoring this show. From TCTV and the League of Women Voters, we encourage you to vote in the general election on November 8th. Thank you.